All right, here we go. Episode 30, Pours with Patriots, with my special guest, who should have been the first guest. It only took me a year to convince him to come in here. If you haven't seen the post, it's my father, Sergeant First Class retired Roger Miller. So I've kind of been waiting for this interview for 50 years, or maybe like 30 or so, but definitely a year that took him to get here. I had to give him about $1,200 and also promised to go to the VA for him to come in. So welcome, Dad. Hello?
Hello.
Okay. Hopefully he's going to talk. We're kind of worried here. It could be a thing here. So that's what he's supposed to say. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for having me on, son. I appreciate it.
Okay. You can relax a little bit. It'll be right, Dad.
Okay.
So we have a bet going that we're going to go 5 or 3 minutes before we get into our first argument. The Miller men have been known to yell a little bit, especially at each other, right?
At times. Once in a while.
Hello. You're like on your best behavior. We should have done this a long time ago. This is like...
Yeah, but this only lasts an hour and a half, then we can go back to normal.
Okay. If you keep talking like this, it'll be like 15 minutes. But
okay.
That's good. So we'll start off with our quote. A couple of quotes from my dad. If you can already see his hat, if you can see a little bit, but I did post. He's actually a Vietnam veteran. Served in the 101st, the First Cavalry Division. We make fun of the 101st just as much as I make fun of the First Cav as well. But I have a Cav quote to start it off with, Dad. I thought you would. I mean, you probably heard this from Sheldon Creighton Abrams. I'm sorry. The yellow patch does something to an individual that makes him a better soldier, a better team member, and a better American than he otherwise would have been. So General Abrams, known from the Abrams tank, didn't know he cared that much about the Cav. Didn't know anybody cared that much about the Cav unless they were in the first Cav. Right?
I reckon. It's a good outfit.
You're gonna have to talk more, Dad, because no one wants to hear me talk for the next 2 hours. Trust me. So first Cav, I think you're playing it off, but you were super proud of that growing up, right?
Yes,
that was when I was growing up. My dad was a 90s guy. He retired in 1991. We'll get into that, but at the time, not many veterans were walking around with combat patches. You had that gigantic, awful first Cav one that takes up half your uniform, but a very proud unit. Yes. Let's say, right?
Yes, very proud.
So one of the questions from your grandson was what was either your grandson or your daughter-in-law was what was your favorite duty station or unit that you were assigned to?
Actually, probably.
He's not going to say the first Cav now. Who said that?
No, I enjoyed the first Cav. Probably Germany when I was over there, because a lot of good people there. But I mean, actually, every unit I was in, there was a lot of good people. So I mean,
a lot of great officers, probably.
Well, I wouldn't say great officers, but NCOs and enlisted. There was a lot of good officers. There was a lot of bad ones. Of course, we had a lot of bad NCOs too.
But that was one of the questions that was actually, I took Jana's question. So we have some random questions from the family that we'll throw in there later.
Okay.
I won't tell you who the next ones are. You're going to have to try to guess who they are. That's the game we're going to play. Okay. So I got Jana's out of the way. The left are your three grandsons. And you have to guess whose question they are. So a little bit to talk about history. Like I feel like I keep looking at notes. I don't have any notes on you because I think I pretty much know your history, I think. So you grew up in Ida Grove, Iowa,
yes,
which is in the middle of nowhere, Iowa. If anybody's wondering, that's where both of my parents grew up. If you've ever been there, we're probably the only two people in Ohio that have ever been to Ida Grove, Iowa. Pretty small, right?
Yes.
How many people growing up?
Well, when I was living there, it was about 2,100. I don't know.
So pretty small town.
It's probably about 3,000 something now. So
that many, huh? Didn't seem like that many when we went there.
Well, that's about what it is. So now it's not very big.
No, and then
not much to do there. It's an eye opener.
Yeah, I mean that's true. I mean there's nothing to do. The last time we were there was like 5 years ago. There was probably nothing to do in like the 60s. I can't imagine or what you guys were doing there. But we'll get to that because you were getting into trouble a little bit. We'll talk about that later on. So grew up at a time, obviously growing up, the Vietnam War was kicking off. Mm-hmm. Let's go back even earlier than that. So grew up in a big family, right?
Yep, there was 8 kids, 4 girls, 4 boys. And dad worked, mom stayed at home, watched kids. So
A lot of them.
What was at home, yeah.
Right. And not running amok in Ida Grove.
Yes.
Okay. So the family, we always talk about this, and hopefully we could chat more, but not, not the richest family in town, I would say at the time, right?
No, we lived on the poor side of the tracks.
All right. Which I didn't think that happened in the middle of Iowa, but they're actually still there.
It did. We had a railroad track that separated the rich people from the poor, and we weren't treated very well, and they got away with almost murder over on the other side. So.
And so the family got, well, I wouldn't say, like all families, probably boys causing trouble. And if they're Miller boys, probably I can imagine the trouble they were getting. So few of the boys were taken away, right? You and your brothers. So
yes, my oldest brother, Raleigh, I figure he was around 10 when he got taken away for stealing a water gun. So they took him away from mom and dad. Got sent to a juvenile delinquent home in Tama, Toledo, Iowa, which is on the east coast border of Iowa. And
I was going to say coast. There's a coast in Iowa.
Which is about, I'd say, 4.5 hour ride over there. I remember little going to visit him there. I was probably about 4 or 5 at the time. And then when I was 11, they took my next oldest brother, Leroy, and me, and they sent us to the juvenile delinquent home. Leroy, what it was, we didn't get to play on the sports teams because we didn't live on the right side of the tracks. So they never picked us to be on any of the teams at school. So he had a temper. On his way home, he seen this water hose and a window open, so he turned the water on and stuck the hose in a window. So they decided that he needed to go, and the authorities said, well, throw that one in too, because he's probably going to turn out just like the other 2. So off I went at 11 years old.
Oh, you're the other one that was going to cause trouble?
I was the other one that went for doing nothing.
I don't mean to laugh. It's just
so I was there about 8 months, and I got fostered out,
right,
which was probably saved my life, because it turns out that the 2 oldest brothers were molested at the boys' home. Leroy brought his out in the open, but it was too late. Everybody was involved, including the whole state of Iowa. Most of them had died, so there wasn't anything to prove, and trying to find a lawyer that would take on the whole state of Iowa. I mean, it's not going to happen. The oldest one, Raleigh, which he's the only boy beside me that's still alive, he's kept it in. He has not brought it out, and I know that he has, but he's been eating it inside of him all this time. And then, like I say, I got fostered out. I stayed with my foster parents in Cresco, Iowa, which is northeast corner, just 20 miles from the Minnesota border.
The Frabels, right?
Frabels, yes. I stayed there until I was 17, and at that time, they asked to adopt me, but my real parents said no. So I had to be released, and I got sent back home for my senior year back in Ida Grove. Of course, I knew all these kids because I grew up with them until I was 11, so they were all happy to see me.
And Leroy's the only one that stayed the whole.
Leroy and Raleigh both stayed. It was either go in the Army or.
No, but Leroy's the only one that stayed the whole. I mean, Jesse stayed. He didn't go into any kind of carry.
No, he was. I think he was 4 at the time that we went.
Right.
So I guess that was probably too young to put him in there, and he never had to go, or was never taken away.
So this is now late 60s. There's a war called Vietnam that's going on, right?
Yes.
I think everybody knows. First person that we've interviewed, or like, not that I've talked to, obviously, but the draft was in full swing, right?
Well, I graduated in 67. I worked for a year, for farmers and then a newspaper office. And then I became the number one on the draft list in my hometown, which I decided I did not want to be 11 Bravo. So I went down to the recruiter, looked at the book, and picked out the MOS of 45 Bravo, which is small arms repairman. And I enlisted for 4 years.
Yeah, so we went back to your 50th high school reunion. So I think there was quite a few kids in that class or around that time frame that you grew up that ended up getting drafted, right?
Yes.
And quite a few of them, frankly, I mean,
Didn't make it
back. We did meet the one of your classmates at the 50th reunion. He had it pretty bad in Vietnam. I was lucky to come back. But so your whole motivation, that was one of my questions, instead of drafting and getting drafted, you knew you were going to get drafted, right?
Yes.
So your Raleigh, did he know that too? Because he enlisted as well.
Well, Raleigh,
your brother?
Raleigh enlisted when he turned 17 from the home and went into the military. And he put in 20 years as a military policeman.
And some of the people that don't know, I mean, if you don't know at that time, you could enlist instead of getting drafted. It was an option.
Yes,
a lot of people, depending, again, your socioeconomic class, what you were doing, education-wise, things like that did impact whether or not you were going to get drafted. So a lot of people took the option, like you did, and many other people said, okay, I'm going to control my own fate, and I'm going to enlist and hopefully, be able to choose what I want to do, right?
Yeah.
So
it doesn't always work that way, though.
No. I mean, so what made you pick a small arms repairman?
I don't know. It's the only thing that, stuck out for me, and so I didn't care for any of the rest of them. Well, what I wanted to be was a military policeman.
I hope this was going to come out. I know the story now. See, he was trying to skate over a story that he's not going to get out because I want his grandson to hear this. It's a good story. So, he wanted to be a military policeman, right? However,
yes, but what happened when I was 19, before I became number one on the draft list, my foster parents were very religious. We went to church 3 times a week. Mostly, I didn't do much dating girls or anything like that because we milked 45 cows. We had a big farm, so really wasn't much time for anything else. So I was kind of a naive child. I mean, I didn't get in trouble. So when I was working at the newspaper office, some friends I went to school with says, "Hey man, this farm out here, we're all getting gas from out there. All you have to do is go out there and go to the pump. They leave it unlocked. You get gas for free and off you go." Well, first I said, well, okay, let's do it. So we drove out there. I stuck the pump in the tank, the gas hole, and all of a sudden the place lit up like the 4th of July. Didn't steal anything, but got charged with petty larceny, went to jail for 17 days. So
the great Ida Grove gas thing got you?
Bit us again, yes.
So
because of that,
I didn't know that story until literally like 5 years ago. Like, because I asked that question, I was like, because we'll talk later. He did eventually become an MP when he got a waiver, but I want to see if he was going to skirt over that. Like, I didn't want to be anything else. I'm like, I think there's another story to that. So, but 17 days of hard labor.
No, it was. They let us go out in the yard and run around, talk all day long. Then they'd lock us back up. Our friends would come to the bars at night, and we had aluminum foil, and they pour beer in for us. I mean, it wasn't hard labor or anything like that. It was just that we were locked up at night, and So, yeah. But it was the idea. It was on your record,
right.
And so therefore, they would not give me a waiver because you'd have to get a top secret to be a military policeman. And they said no. So that's when I looked at the book and decided on something else.
So good decision that you decided to become a small arms repairman. Mm-hmm. You get to go to beautiful Vietnam.
Well, first I went to Aberdeen Proving Grounds after basic for the AIT for the small arms repairman. Mm-hmm. And then from there I got sent to Fort Gordon for 6 months, repairing weapons for the trainees, basic training out on the ranges. We had our deuce and a half out there with our workshop and everything. Then when they picked us for Vietnam, then I got sent to Fort Benning for 6 months for the training and in advanced school. And then from there, I went to Vietnam, to the 199th Light Infantry Brigade in Long Binh.
And so this was 1969.
Yep.
So the heat of the war is going on, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's assigned to the first. Was that part of the first cav at the time, or assigned?
No, that was a completely different outfit. And then they pulled out in 70, and that's when the Big Red One came in and took the 199th in Long Binh there over. And that's when I didn't have enough time in country, so then they shipped me to the 1st Cav Division, which was in Ben Hoa, the headquarters, and they shipped me up to Song Bay, up by Mongolian border up there. Some little dinky fire base and out of nowhere.
So up there, so while you were in Vietnam, you were just repairing, there's a couple pictures I shared. So repairing small arms. What else were you doing in Vietnam? You have one of the things that I was going to ask you, have an air combat medal. So how were you awarded that? I feel like if you were just
flying 120 hours in hostile air people shooting at you and stuff.
So door gunner is what you were doing. So that's he's playing hard to like get out these questions here, but yeah. So what's funny though, I didn't that topic. He doesn't talk about it very often. I don't think you've ever said that to me until I asked. I think I remember I was a little bit older and I finally asked what you how you had an air combat medal when you were just fixing guns, and I was getting ready to go in the military myself, and I was like, this doesn't make sense. Is my dad fake valor? I'm joking, but and what was always funny is a lot of your soldiers would laugh about how you had a cool job in Vietnam and all the stuff you did, and I was like, my dad was fixing weapons and blah blah blah, and then I eventually asked you, right, and you told me, and I don't exactly remember, but it was a very pointed conversation of don't tell anybody that I did this or I'll kill you, basically, is what the extent of the conversation I remember. So I feel like you were never really honest with mom or other people about doing that, right?
Your mother, the question she asked is, did you ever kill anybody? Well, that's what the majority of the question people ask you, did you ever kill anybody? Well, I just don't say anything. And I just looked at her and she said, you did, didn't you? And I didn't say anything. And she says, how could you? So she thought less of me after that. So we don't really discuss it.
Right, which is this is an interesting topic because one of the things of why we talked, we started Towards the Patriots a year ago, is that it is to get these things to talk about. There is that stigma that a lot of veterans have. It's gone back for probably every generation of veteran that's ever served. That's a question, just if you're out there, you definitely don't want to ask a veteran. It's not a comfortable question to ask a veteran. And yeah, it's one of the things to talk about. I think a lot of people don't talk to their family. Growing up, I kind of sensed that with mom. It wasn't a discussion that we talked. Vietnam wasn't a topic that we talked about a lot. Even when you knew that I was getting ready to take on that same career, it was kind of interesting. So did you share that with your parents, or did you keep it quiet about what you did the whole time?
We never really spoke about it. And I didn't. I wasn't going with your mother. I knew her before I went to Vietnam because we only lived 6 miles apart. And my philosophy was I wasn't going to having a relationship with any females or as a partner or whatever before I went to Vietnam, because we all have that notion that we might not come back. So I didn't want, other than my parents and my immediate family, I didn't want anybody else to have to suffer if that did happen. So.
Interesting, but this is probably the longest we've ever talked about Vietnam, right? Mm-hmm. You and I, even though I served as well at a different time, but yeah, it's a hard thing. And I think this is one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on, is to share it a little bit more about so that other people in your family that are listening can hear it. And I could assume it's a hard thing to hold in for that long, right? Mm-hmm. I almost want to laugh, but I can definitely see that mom's reaction to it, because mom really wasn't too excited about anything to do with the military as it was. So I can definitely see Not to laugh, but I could definitely hear mom saying that, and and mom's attitude towards that at the time. So, so you obviously you made it out of Vietnam, right?
Yes.
The cat's out of the bag. We know that.
I'm here. Yes.
Okay. And I always laugh about this, right? And I've said this to you before, and I've told many people this, is that I feel like the Vietnam War was the best thing that ever happened to you. You're one of those few people that, got you out of a place where it wasn't the greatest, place to grow up, even as a young adult, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where we came from, and your guys' upbringing, our family name there. So I felt like you going to Vietnam, you survived it. It changed the course of your life.
Yes.
A lot of your family stayed there,
yes,
and a lot of them fell into hard times, or didn't really not hard times, but didn't become the best of who they could be, right?
Yes.
Would that be the way of putting it?
Yes, I agree. Yeah, and that process started with the foster parents. That Vietnam, and that's what made me the person I am today, and I'm grateful for it.
Grateful for foster care in Vietnam.
Yes.
I think how many people would say that? That's an interesting thing. That's why I always say, as a joke to you, that you're the luckiest guy I know that went through those two things. So you make it through Vietnam. What was the hardest? Let's talk about Vietnam. Like, what was the hardest part about being Vietnam, other than like obviously the situation you guys were in, the type of enemy you were fighting, and the war it was, but like, what was your own personal your biggest struggle while you were there? You didn't have anybody back at home, right?
No, just my parents. So
what was your biggest struggle day to day?
Well, I was with a lot of good soldiers. So we at first, the first month was really tough because they scare you with all these tactics of you're going to die in the middle of the night. Snapper's going to come in and slice all your throats, and you hear every door that crinks. And after that, you got to constantly be alert. When I was with the 199th, we had to go out in the field where units were camped for the night or whatever and fix their weapons. So, of course, the IEDs that we had to avoid and all that, just like, Afghanistan and Iraq. And then when you're out there, you just was getting by so you could get back home.
Right.
The struggle.
And a different war when you guys were back at home, like, whatever fire base they were in, you guys were, if you've never seen it, if you've ever watched Platoon or any Vietnam movie, when they were back off patrol, there was, alcohol, drugs, all the things to get yourself in trouble.
Those
right?
shows are a little far-fetched.
Yeah, but there was alcohol. There was
there's alcohol, but we didn't party like that. We still got mortared at the fire bases. The main camps,
right.
At least once or twice a month.
But there was a way to relax. You guys did get alcohol.
Yes.
You guys did get, there were breaks that you could go on. It was a different type of thing. You weren't getting near beer. I guess maybe if you're getting mortared, if you had 2 or 3 beers, it makes it a little bit easier. Maybe, I don't know. But we didn't get. It was a different time, a different war. So I think tough guy. What's up? That's Mike probably saying what's up. I think Mike said hello to you. So so that time there. So you how many total months did you spend in Vietnam?
12 months.
So a total year. Okay. No leave at all during the 12 months?
No, I didn't take R&R because I felt if I went on R&R now, I'd probably go AWOL and not go back. So I stayed there and ended the year.
So back then, when were a lot of guys going to R? Back to the States, or were they?
There was a lot were going to Thailand and where else? Hawaii. Some would go back to the States.
So how long was R&R for you guys if you went?
It was usually about 2 weeks, 2-3 weeks.
Okay, so not that long to really.
No.
Especially with the mode of travel back then. I figure you'd probably spend 8 days in the States and the rest traveling to and from where you're at. So you like I said, you survived Vietnam.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, you went to Germany the first time.
Yeah, they gave me 50 days leave, and I had orders to go to Germany. I thought, well, this kind of sucks, back-to-back overseas assignments, which isn't supposed to happen. But when you're an enlisted man, that happens to you.
So you said that only took 25 minutes for
50 days, 50 days leave, and that's when I kind of upped the relationship somewhat with your mother. And then I went to Germany, Kornwestheim concern. It's north of Stuttgart, little small place with the 127th Maintenance Battalion. And I was there 7 months, well, 5 months. And then I found out that my foster parents, you start bringing in all the crops in August through November. So I found out that I could apply for a early out on seasonal employment. And so he had to do a big old stack of paperwork, so pardon me, for all the stuff. And they approved it, so I got out 4 months early and went to my foster parents and helped bring in the crops that year, 71. And then I got a job. Then I found out that your mother had married somebody else.
But
that went bad after a month, and they were separated. He wouldn't give her a divorce.
Ben is over there. I think he's like trying to process.
So we got serious, and of course,
1972 comes along, the best year of your life, right? Yes.
And you were born.
Because I was born, right?
And he still has not given her a divorce yet. So we're just going to say that you were born, and then after you were born, he finally signed the paperwork.
You're telling me right now on screen that I was born out of wedlock. I already knew that. So that's what I'm finding out. But it's a funny story though, because it wasn't like they told me this. You would think like at a certain time, at a certain age, they would say like, we're going to sit down and explain this to you. So my parents' anniversary, you remember that plate you guys had when you got married? It was like this like hand painted like plate that had their wedding date, and it was a year after I was born. So for the longest time, it was I'd look at it and be like, man, maybe my parents, just the person who did it, they got the wrong date. It was like December 16th. I was born December 27th. Like maybe just got the year mixed up. Then I'm like, that's only a couple weeks off then if the date is wrong, right? So I mean, I probably didn't say anything for like 13 or 14 years probably about it. Like probably even longer. And I was looking at it, be like, yeah, my mom, she wasn't good with numbers. She just got mixed up. And someone just said, oh my gosh, I never knew that. So I don't, so yeah, that was one of the funny things. So then I finally brought it up to you. That's when, mom,
and
spilled the beans.
The point was, I mean, her last name then was Peters. And we thought, well, you're my son. Why do I have to adopt you later? So we put down Miller at the hospital.
Uh-oh.
So maybe you're illegal. Maybe you're
now you have everybody coming after me. It's like always the same thing.
Yeah, they probably will now.
Now they will. They're like, oh my God, he's got the wrong name, his last name. So I can go by Peters now. Is what you're telling me?
You could, yes.
Wow,
and nobody would know who you are.
So. I didn't know. So I didn't need something now.
It was Becky Peters.
Yeah, that's his sister.
That's my sister.
Wow,
it's amazing how this guy and her, she wasn't the one who married him, no.
But 1972, I definitely think best year of your life. I was born.
Yes.
So what you at the time, go back to 71 when you got out, the seasonal employment, there was no desire to stay in the military at the time. What made you get out? There was
no desire. I really didn't want to. So I got out and I got a job at IBP. It's Iowa Beef Processors in the Nebraska, Iowa border. And I worked there for a couple years in the coolers. And we went out on strike then for like 9 months, which these guys did every 3 years. They would actually blow up people's houses, telephone towers, and everything else. And the guys that I worked with were probably in the top 50 out of 4,000 that worked there. They in seniority. So I thought, well, this is bull crap. So then I worked in a gas station as a night foreman. And then I thought, well, now I think I'm going to go back in.
That's almost a good joke of gas at night foreman gas back to when you're 19.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
No.
I can't wait for your grandsons to give you a hard time about this. But so obviously not the greatest job. You're not feeling the jobs. You got a young, awesome kid named Che Peters Miller.
Yes.
Growing up, you got mom. You're married to mom now.
Yeah.
So what made you decide to go back in the military? It was just what was the situation then?
Well, we figured we'd be better off. We'd make more money and, get to see, other parts of the world. And that's when I applied as an MP, and they gave me the waiver, and I said, okay.
Smooth criminal. You made it through.
Now here we go.
So I know that when you guys left in 1974, like you never went back. I mean, visiting, but you never lived
We
back.
went not until in '82 when we came back from Germany.
But I mean, I'm talking about lived there. You never went back. You and
No,
mom
I
never moved back to
lived there
Iowa.
again, no.
So you guys basically like that's we don't come from family where I've probably seen my aunts and uncles a handful of times probably.
Well, your mom went back for the 15 months that I was in Korea, because it was hardship tour is what it was. And so she couldn't live on any military post. So she went back and she lived in Battle Creek. And that's when you were 2. And that 15 months was probably the worst 15 months of my life. Because
you weren't
when
with
I
me.
left,
You weren't with me. I know, Dad. It's okay.
Well, when I left, you and I were really close. And when I came back, you were like scared shitless of me. And it took probably 6 to 8 months before you ever warmed back up to me. And 15 months.
I'm still working on that at 50 years old now. I'm still trying to warm back up to this. I'm kidding. No, but this
is just something you can't get back ever in your life. So.
Yeah, and and I'm glad you bring that up. A lot of those, obviously 2 years old, I don't remember those that interaction coming back, but I think it was very similar. I think for me was with Nate when I came back from Afghanistan. Ben was a little bit older. Ben remembered me. Nate didn't have a clue who I was and wasn't having any of it either. So that's a feeling that a lot of I think that's a hard part for all of us to come back to, is when you have a young child who doesn't remember you and that interaction. It's I've talked about before. When I think about that interaction with Nate for the first couple of days, it's very difficult because he didn't want to come near me. He didn't know who I was, and Ben was just like, that's your dad. It's Dad, and it was so Ben made up for it, but pushing his brother towards me, it was one of those things. But your heart never. I know how you feel, because your heart never. It never really fully heals from that. So. It's unfortunate. Oh, you missed me, Dad. Oh, look at that.
I did.
I missed you too, Dad.
Thank you. I love you, son.
So, I gotta end it at that. I love you. Here, we're going to our first featured beverage, right? Because my dad does not drink whiskey. Although the picture I sent up on his post, he's holding a bottle of Old Granddad, which if we had that bottle right now, Dad, would be worth so much money. It was probably that was 1969 Old Granddad. We could be that thing's probably worth $1,000. No, it'd be we would be. Yeah, that's like
Well, we could go to Vietnam, see if we can find it.
Well, the funny thing. The funny thing with that picture is he's holding it in the beer, and he said he wasn't drinking it. He said he never drank the whiskey, but I'm like, somebody was drinking it.
I think it was my buddies. I was holding it for him. I don't know.
I thought you were going to bust that out we were all excited that was going to be your surprise beverage that you bring, but instead my dad doesn't drink whiskey. We'll talk about the whiskey tie-in as we get going on, but my dad, he doesn't drink much, but he loves Shiner Bock. So it's a interesting beer. Not one of my favorites, a little bit too dark for me, but we got to give a shout out to Shiner Bock. This is our first time we talked about a beer a beer company. But Shinerbach is the flagship beer of the Spetzel Brewery, which claims to be the oldest brewery in Texas. It's located in Shiner, Texas. They have many products, but it's pretty much their prime product they're known for is Shinerbach. The brewery was founded as the Shiner Brewing Association in 1909 by German and Czech immigrants with a desire for beer from the old country. Shinerbach was introduced in 1913, and then in 1915, a German brewmaster, Cosmo Spetzel, bought the brewery and changed the name to his last name. Over the years, Shinerbach has a pretty good following. I remember it from Texas the first time I was there, but it's started to gradually move all across the United States. It's a Maibach. It's made in the true Maibach fashion. And it was originally, I didn't know this, but it was originally only served during the Lent time frame, but it's now a beer that's served all year round. And in 1991, like I said, it was Shinerbach went national. I think it's everywhere. Like you see it everywhere now. I don't know a state that doesn't have it, but this beer is pretty well known beer. It's won a couple gold medals, 2012 American Beer Festival and also the European Beer Stars. So you already drinking that? I guess I have to have a Shinerbach now.
Yep.
All right. Can you pick the better beer down? Come on. Okay. I love you too, Dad. Okay. And I love Shinerbach too. Okay. All right. I'll save that one for you. So you're back reunited with your favorite child, right? Who's still your favorite child. I got to throw that out. My sister who's out there. So I've never seen him get emotional about you, Natasha, actually. So 1974, you enlist back in as military policeman.
Yes.
And you finally get your first stateside assignment. You head to Fort Lee, Virginia.
Yes.
So
after going to Fort Gordon for MP school. And then to get my top secret clearance, I was a holdover for 6 weeks. So they gave me a brand new riding lawnmower, and I mowed grass on post for 6 weeks in charge of all the other trainees, which was a great job.
Landscape, that's what you
right up to the Dairy Queen on your dang riding lawnmower. Get yourself a cone. It was great.
You're working really hard at the time. Supposed to be a military policeman, but you're doing landscaping work. I love it. So we had to because I was live then. We head to Fort Lee, right?
Fort Lee after Fort Gordon,
which is probably the time that I start remembering
that's
in my vivid memories of like at my age. So to that time, maybe 3, I started. I can remember.
Yeah, we lived in a trailer court because my rank was not high enough to get on post, and that's where you got bit by the horse.
That's right.
Feeding them hay. Yep.
I think after I was told not to do that.
Yeah.
And I did that anyways and got bit. I remember that vividly. So I love horses just as much as I love Shinerbach from that. I remember that. But I think that's the first time I remember, that's, you were military policeman time. I remember my vivid memories of the awful, I think I posted a picture of those hard shell helmets you guys used to wear.
Yeah.
Do you remember those?
Yes.
Did you have to wear those all the time?
Yes. In Korea too, we had to wear the same thing.
So if you haven't seen it, it's like a helmet, but it was was it fiberglass?
Yeah.
And they're
real thin though.
So like real thin fiberglass. They're very decorative, right? They had like your logo on it. You have one of that? Don't you have one still somewhere? Or it's upstairs in Nate's room.
Yeah,
it is up in Nate's room. I knew there's one somewhere floating around. But I can imagine like in the summertime, especially like in Virginia, having to wear that around. Like you had to wear that all the time, right?
Yep.
And the other thing I remember from the MPs growing up your age, that time frame was the nightstick.
Yes.
And that goofy helmet. That's what every MP had. It was like, right?
Yes.
Interesting. So, and at Fort Lee, you're patrolling. When you eventually get there, what are you doing as a military policeman?
Patrolling on the road. And I think we was there 15 months, and I got orders to go to Korea in 75. And at 75, no, wait. There 18 months. Got there.
I'm trying to see. Find
the dates there.
76 to 78. Look at that. I do have the notes there.
So in 70s, November 76, I think it was. I got orders to go to Korea. And it was only supposed to have been a 1-year tour, but near the end of the tour, I only had like 4 months left before I had to enlist. So they made me stay the 12 months and then they let me re-enlist. So I missed 2 Christmases, 2 of your birthdays, 2 anniversaries, 2 of my birthdays, and it was really pure hell. And then back to Fort Lee again.
But what's funny is maybe I remember the latter part of Fort Lee then, because I don't remember you being gone.
You were little.
Yeah, I don't remember you being gone. I guess remember the parts of me getting bit by the horse. I think I was older. I had to be probably, you're right, in the like 5 or 6 year range. But I don't remember you being gone at all. So that was a pretty young age. I don't remember going back to Iowa at all.
Then we lived like a couple of months in the same trailer court when I came back, and then we got quarters on post, and that's on Brocklehurst there. No, not Brocklehurst. What the hell was the name of that road?
You like fast forward a ton of years on that name.
And that's when you stun your face all up going down the hill on the scooter and the Shaddocks and stuff.
Right. That's the part.
That's the second time we were there. Yeah.
Okay. That's the time I remember them. The first time I don't remember them. But yeah, another time where you told me not to do something, and I did it because you guys remember you were driving in the car.
You've really done that? You did something like that?
You guys were going up the hill in the car, and I was going down the hill in the scooter, and it didn't work out.
No, it didn't. It didn't work out for you at all.
So it was a bad day. It was a bad day. So at this time, so I'm the only kid at the time. I know that this is a question I know, like, were you, mom and you were trying to, I know I was an awesome kid. You probably didn't want to have another kid. Were you guys trying to have a kid knowing the military, the possibility of leaving again, or
no, what was going on? We were trying to, but she even went all the way to Walter Reed, and the doctors told her hormones were all messed up and she couldn't have another child. So we figured that you were going to be the only one.
You hear that, Natasha?
Until we got sent to Germany.
Must be something in the water.
After Fort Lee, and something in the water.
So, like you said, they left Fort Lee. We went to Virginia. Left Virginia, headed to Germany from 79 to 82.
Yes. So,
like I said, my sister was born in 80.
Yes.
Definitely times I remember. Germany is very vivid in my mind. I was 10, 9, 10, 11, 12 years old. So, not that old. Was I? Yeah.
Yeah.
10. I'm what I'm talking about. My math.
You'd have been 8 when she was born.
8 to 10. Yeah. So my sister was born when I was 8, which changed the dynamic of the family a little bit, right? Yep. So she's kind of ruined our life since 1980. It's okay. We still love her now, but no, it was a different time frame because it was just the 3 of us, right?
Well, she's my favorite daughter. You know that.
I know, but not your favorite child. We know that. But it changed our dynamic because, like I said earlier, we didn't have a really tight relationship with your family, right? I think I met them a couple times. Yeah, I did live with them. So it was kind of like us 3, like the 3 amigos and everything. So Natasha was born. It was actually a great time for me. I remember I was excited to have a sister, to kind of not be the only kid.
Yeah.
Hopefully get out of the slave labor trade that I was in at the time. 8 years old. Vacuum, dust.
Out delivering a newspaper.
Out delivering. I mean, that didn't start till I was at least 10, but but it was a different time. It changed the dynamic a little bit. I think mom was a little bit happier. You guys were trying for a long time to have another child, and Natasha came in and blessed us. So back to names. We have to. This is the question I had. So I have a very unique name. What is your story of why you guys named me Che?
Well, we didn't want any common names, so we would sit there and say names of something that was different than everybody else's, and Che came up, so we said, "Hey, let's go with it. You don't see too many of those, except for Korean." So,
right, because I asked, it's a very common Korean last name.
Yes, it is.
So I found that out so the rewind back though to Korea. I spent time in Korea. Like you like Korea for a couple, for one main reason, Korean food, right? You still today love Korean food. You love kimchi.
There was the soldiers I served with we were all really tight. They were good guys. So. Guys and women. So.
Yeah.
But, it was a good unit. We were up like 2.5 miles from the DMZ up at, you know where we were at. You served in the same
You were
year.
at Casey? You know where Casey
No,
was?
Casey's. We were
Wait,
up
further back.
north.
I can't think either. I'm getting old too. Look at us. We're both old. We can't remember. We'll figure it out.
Too many towns.
We'll figure it out. But yeah, and then back then, the same time as obviously was a different time too. Because even when I went in '99, right? Mm-hmm. So like if you go now, you can't go. You can go 2 years with your family. We can do 1 year, but it was a different thing. There's phones you could talk to. I think I don't even think I had a phone. I think I had AOL or something, and I maybe did have a phone. I think that you put minutes into, but I can't imagine back then when you were there. There was no communication back and forth. So
just writing on a piece of paper and sending a letter home. So.
Right. So I mean, now, like I say, all you guys deployed. We're talking to even one of the Pours of Patriots guys. He's on he's on Facebook more than we are, and he's deployed somewhere. Yeah, we're talking about you, Vining. But no, it's a different time. I mean, I can imagine in the late '70s to be there, and the only way you would communicate is an occasional phone call, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe, and then mail, right? Yeah. That's the only crazy.
Camp Pelham is where I was at.
Pelham. Yeah. I don't remember that. I don't even know where that's at.
You remember Yanjigal?
No.
Okay. Well, we were north of them, so.
No. So you come back from, we came back from there. We went to Germany. So station Grafenwehr.
Mm-hmm.
I remember you living the life then, a lot of bowling. I don't remember you working. I remember you bowling and playing softball. And that's really
like. No, I did a lot of patrolling.
But we spent a lot of time at the bowling alley.
Yeah, well, there wasn't anything else to do. So when you was off, you went bowling.
Yeah, I feel like we were there a lot, though. I mean, I feel it was that was the hangout for everybody, like the bowling leagues,
Mm-hmm.
It was cool.
That and playing softball, yeah.
Yeah, because it was cool with me because I remember Grafenwehr was a training base that people didn't know at the time. It was a pretty busy training base. I don't know how it is anymore, but all the troops would come in there, so they would be at the bowling alley too.
Yes.
So it was like a cool thing to see all these different service members, and at the time they had all the fancy colored unit crests on their uniforms. So I used to spend a lot of time chasing them down, trying to get all the unit crests from them. I'd ask them for it. If they said no, you just wait till they put down their jacket. You take them, especially after they had a couple beers. They're like, "Where's that damn kid that took those?" But remember, I probably had hundreds of those. Remember that?
Yeah.
We took them and put them on the beer. Mom maybe put them on the German beer coasters. But somebody said, does she get German citizenship? So Natasha was born in a German hospital, yes. Eschenbach.
Yes.
Right. By German nuns. Right. Yeah. So she was dual citizenship till she was 18. Right?
Until she was 18, then she had the opportunity to decide which way she wanted to go.
Yeah, the Germans didn't want her. She just doesn't know that. But what's great about my sister that this at the same time she that's when I was telling my sister that she was adopted, because if you've never seen my sister, she's like half my size. She looks exactly like we do, but she still believed that she was adopted for the longest time. I told her that was a bad prank I played on her for a long time.
It was,
but
that's why she doesn't like you anymore.
Probably. But she was a dual citizen. Yeah, nothing ever came to that. She just had to declare, right? Declare, that when she was 18. So, and she hasn't been back yet. She's never been back to her.
No.
She's too worried about going to Utah.
I haven't been back there since then either. So.
You haven't been back either?
I haven't been back to Germany.
Really?
Kind of would like to make a trip there, but
they have planes, Dad. You could take them. A lot of planes go to Germany.
Oh,
come on! He's playing his poor over here now. That's well, I'll sell some whiskey for you, and we can get you a plane ticket. Come on! If you'd have kept that bottle of old Granddad, you could have been flying first class. 2 or 3 trips.
They probably didn't even know anything about collecting things back in that time period. So
yeah, nobody knows back then. Yeah, that's crazy. That was a crazy picture. That's one I've never noticed. Because that book, those pictures, I know that's funny. That all those pictures you pulled out. There was like a Vietnam book that my dad hid. He didn't hide it very well, but I remember finding that and looking at all that kind of stuff. That's when we talked earlier about something wasn't making sense about what my dad said he did and all that kind of stuff. But I never noticed that one. That was that was the first thing I noticed when you showed me the pictures yesterday. I was like,
I didn't
Well, we
notice
had
it
that
until I
problem.
pulled him out either. I'm thinking, when did this happen?
It was many years ago.
Yeah.
Many years ago. So Germany, you're there. You did spend a lot of time. You were a pretty good athlete. I'll give you that.
Yeah.
Bowler, softball player.
Mm-hmm.
Were you playing racquetball in Germany? Is that when you started getting?
Actually, I started in Korea, but that was when I took a whole racket to the face and got hit with rackets. I was just a beginner, and I thought, well, this is not a fun game where you go in here and beat each other with rackets to, and bruise them and break things. So I gave up on it, and then I don't think I played any in Germany. I don't think we had any racquetball courts.
Oh, you played a lot of softball, though. I remember that.
It was when I got to West Point.
You guys played in like a
Wait, I did play some at Fort Lee with John Shattuck. That was after because Korea, and then came back to Fort Lee. I played with John, and that's when John taught me the proper way to play it, but he just kicked my ass all the time. So
which is not to hit each other. He obviously didn't teach that. The reason I bring up racquetballs is my dad ended up, before he got old and out of shape, he was actually a really, really good racquetball player. I did beat him one time in my life, but my dad was notorious for hitting people with the ball. He just said all these things he didn't like, but my dad, if you were like trying to beat him, like starting to get momentum going, he would hit you with the racquetball. And if you've never been hit with a racquetball, you don't know that pain, that feeling. If you've ever been hit with it, you know that pain. And then the worst thing is when you have your father telling you, like, rub it, I know it hurts, and your leg you have a big swell mark. And then you end up are pinned against the wall because you don't want to get hit again, and then he beats you. So it's like, but he learned the proper way to play, but he's actually really, you were really good at it for a long time, right? It was kind of crazy. And enjoy doing that, but you were super athletic. I mean, but softball and racquetball were your thing. Softball until we'll talk about it in a second. So we go back to West Point, right? Mm-hmm. We go back to New York, which none of us had ever been there before.
No.
Which ties into the crazy question. My other question was, I don't know if I know this one, but everybody knows. If you don't know, we're diehard Yankees fans. Like, that's the only team that we watch baseball wise. How did you become a Yankee fan? I don't know if I know that, like, where that started, because you're from Iowa. Like, how did you?
In Iowa,
how did that happen?
We only got 3 channels, black and white. TV was up in the corner on a stand. You didn't have any remote. It was turn the channel for the stations. It was hands off. Dad was the only one allowed to touch it. In the Midwest, you get a game on Saturdays. And usually it would be probably Milwaukee or Atlanta Braves, Detroit, and once in a while the Yankees would play. But it was normally those teams. And I fell in love with Mickey Mantle when I was 5 years old, watching him. And I've stuck with him since.
Yeah, so the next question is, who's better, Mickey Mantle or Aaron Judge?
Mickey Mantle.
Oh, come on. We talked about this. Mickey Mantle could not make it in today's baseball, Dad. Come on. He was drinking too much. No, it's an inside joke.
He hit 500. He hit 569 home runs on a fence that was 500 feet away, not 340.
Yeah, but the pitchers were throwing pus. They were throwing like 75 miles an hour. I mean, come on. No, it's an inside joke we have. Like, my dad is he's a Mickey Mantle fanatic. He always has been. And then my guy was Don Mattingly, right? And then Derek Jeter, and then my boys are all over Aaron Judge. You know, they're wrong. You're wrong. It was Don Mattingly. Don Mattingly was the best.
He's good, but he hasn't proved himself long enough yet.
Don Mattingly was still the best Yankee. Come on, we're kidding here. So, but yeah, I remember that. I remember being super excited about that because you were super excited. We were going to be in New York and with the Yankees, and we were always Yankees fans. I never really knew that's. I knew you were big on Mantle, but I didn't realize that that 5 is when you decided to pick your team. Now that's not negotiable in the Miller house. You're a Yankee fan or you're out. But other sports,
except for your sister, she turned.
That's why she's out. She's a turncoat. She's a Houston fan. I mean, jump on the bandwagon 10 years ago, no one gave a shit about the Houston Astros. I mean, no one really gives a shit about them now, to be honest with you. But that's all right. So we go to West Point. You're a military policeman there, so everybody knows about West Point. It's a military academy, pretty high vis area to be at. We lived in another sub post, off post. I mean, the sub post from West Point, not exactly on West Point. And you got to stay there for a long, long time compared to
9 years.
So, and that was because of the knee injury. So it was my dad blew out. You could probably tell that story well. I was playing softball.
I was in. Well, I had orders for Vicenza, Italy, at the time that happened.
So when you faked the knee injury, we were going to Italy?
I didn't fake it.
We were going to Italy?
So I was playing in an over 30 tournament.
I didn't even know that.
And I was playing shortstop, and there was a fly ball, and I was backpedaling, and I was calling it. I had it. My outfielder did not hear me. He came running in. His left knee went between mine. And of all times for the stupid little nubs on the bottom of your shoe stick in the ground.
They're called cleats, but.
Well, because they don't have metal. In softball, they have little round ones. And these are so worn down, you wouldn't even say they was there anymore. That one stuck, and my whole body rotated on the right knee. You could hear snap, swords, cords snapping and everything else. So I went down. Everything went numb. I mean, nothing hurt, but it was like all swollen up. We were up 11-1, and if I left, we would have to forfeit the game. So I played another 3 innings.
Which I was there watching. What he's saying is all true.
As catcher, they would pick me up and put me there, and if the ball came to me, I'd get it. If I missed it, the umpire would throw it back out.
And then you were an automatic out.
And I was an automatic out. It was my time to bat. And so when the game was over, they took me to the hospital, and the knee was like 5 times the size it should be for like 3 days. And they finally decided to operate because it wasn't going down. But the next day they ended up forfeiting anyway, so I guess it was all for naught. But
you mean you're talking about the softball game?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's talking about like total knee reconstructions. Like back then wasn't the greatest, wasn't as common as it is today, or as
but I'm lucky that this Army doctor was as good as he was, because I've other doctors that did the same thing. They ended up being crippled and stuff for life, but he did a fantastic job.
But I think at the time, you're talking about Dr. Arciero, was that who it was?
No, it was Dr.
But they were the doctors. Like,
Dr. Ryan.
Like, if you don't know, a lot of the doctors there, especially the orthopedic doctors, work there and still today work with the West Point football team. So a lot of them are there for that exact reason. They're some of the top orthopedics surgeons there because, again, the football players there, if they get hurt, they're ultimately still military property, and they want to get them back to where they can at least serve back in the military. So it's a pretty, if they get hurt, that was probably the best place to get hurt. But Italy, I didn't know we were going to Italy, Dad. Italiano, we could, holy cow.
It was 18 months rebuilt. Well, at a year, I blew out the ACL test in it. But it took 18 months of rehabilitation, giving me a little bit of movement at a time. And so they canceled those orders. And then about when the 18 months was over, then I come down on orders for the 2nd Infantry Division in Korea again. And but no, I'm not. That's a hardship tour. I'm not going back to it. So I appealed it and called DA to speak to the assignment people. And if anybody's ever been in the military, they know that 50% of the people that are in Korea would love to stay there and not move, which would save money for the government. Same way in Germany. So I asked to say, hey, there's got to be somebody in Germany that would want to take place with me. Oh, no, there isn't, Sergeant Miller. And I was an E7 at the time. And so they denied it because, and for all you know, when you're on the phone with somebody, you're not going to get the correct response from them or the true response, because they could be standing there giving you the finger when they're talking to you and telling you nice things.
You should have said, let's go to Italy. Yeah. Like we went to Italy.
So at that time, this a sergeant major from the battalion came in and took over, Sergeant Major Vogel. Well, when he got there, he got all the NCOs in the battalion together in auditorium and sat there, patted himself on the back on how it only took him so many years to be a command sergeant major. He didn't need any of us, and pretty much said, you guys are under my command. You're not going to get anything done unless I want you to. So for somehow him and my first sergeant decided, okay, let's railroad this guy. So they put me in for a medical discharge, which I was under 17 years, which means you don't get the 100% military retirement if you're under 17 years. So I appealed it. And the first one is there's a 13-man board on post that convenes and they decide whether yay or nay. So these 13 people said, but as a sergeant first class in the Army, there was nothing in all the MOSs that I could do. And I thought, oh, really? So I appealed it, which then it goes to Walter Reed up there with a 3-man board. So we went up there, but my first sergeant and my CO, they went with me. And we got there the day before, and we was going to stay overnight, and the board meeting was the next day. Well, they met with the president of the board when we got up there to let them know that we were there early. And he says, well, you tell you what, he says, if I can get one more member, 2/3 is we can convene, and we can have that today, and you guys can be on your way back home tomorrow. So he's got one more, and he talked to the first sergeant CO, never talked to me. And they came back in and he says, Sergeant Miller, we're approving you to stay on duty, but if you try to repeat this, you're only going to get like 1/3 of your retirement. And I says, hey, I'm trying to stay on here. I said, why would I do that? So I got sent back down. It was approved, and I got sent back to the unit. And from then on until the day I retired, that sergeant major tried everything in his world to get me kicked out. So my last 2.5 years was not great in the military.
But you made it.
I made it, yes, because I knew what they were doing and I wasn't about to screw up. So, but what happened is the soldiers that were under me, they realized, and anytime I would, put in for discipline for any of my soldiers, it would get denied. And they knew that I couldn't do anything to them, so they ran rapid on me for the 2.5 years. And
I remember the medical thing. I didn't know all the history behind it, but what was crazy during that whole time, though, you were playing a ton of racquetball.
Mm-hmm.
You gave up softball. I don't remember you playing much softball after that.
Because I didn't have that swing anymore.
Do you think if you were wearing like a brace, like you used to wear a girdle? Remember you used to wear a girdle in Germany?
Yeah.
A big thing, my dad was a pitcher, and one of the big jokes is like, you ever hear like kids, you're like, Ben, you'll appreciate this, like when you're razzing the pitcher, your grandfather was actually wearing a girdle. What was up with the girdle when you were in Germany?
I pulled both groin muscles at the same time. And they had to bring 3 guys from the unit to get me out of bed to get me to the doctor. So as it was healing, because these things, you can be healing for like a month and a half and you just take off too fast, you pull them right back out again. And they just take forever to heal. So when I played, I wore that girdle to keep everything as stable as I could.
And there's things you can't unforget as a child is when we went to some tournament in Germany. I remember all the guys on the team were making fun of you. And they made us stay. It was like a USAREC tournament, and we were staying in like a big gymnasium with cots.
Yes.
And I got to go with you. And there's your dad getting ready for a softball game. The other dads are like pulling up their, at the time, their white socks or whatever, because everyone's wearing shorts. There's my dad putting on a girdle, and I'm like, oh my God, my dad really does wear a girdle. Like, and then it was just a funny situation.
Because of that, it cost me the most valuable player in that tournament, because I got thrown out from second to third so many times, which I would have made it if I, would have been healthy. And then the one time, and of course, when you got close to going to a base, somebody tagging you, you always went in self-defense and, to try to protect yourself. And we almost got in a fight the one time because I stopped because the guy was coming real fast at me and he hit me and he fell down because he was a lot smaller than me. Hey, you ran into him. So I tried to explain, hey,
He was like, hey, man,
I'm hurt. I'm in self-defense here.
He's like, yeah, I got a girdle on. I'm not here to fight.
So,
it's funny that you remember that I remember that so vividly. In that gymnasium, you're putting that on, like, other guys helping you put it on.
We didn't have cots. We slept on the floor of that gymnasium.
I thought there were cots.
No, we slept on the floor. It was not good.
Yeah, we weren't in a hotel. Definitely, we weren't hoteling it. But I was super excited to go. I don't know where did we? Because it wasn't.
It was in Hanover.
It was a good. It was like a day. It's just you and I went with all the guys,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Which was cool. I remember that in Germany, hanging out with the guys. You'd always like go out to eat and.
Oh, I was the coach.
Yeah, it was always good. Yeah, sure. That's why he played. But guys, no, he's
the manager.
So back to like you said, you stayed at West Point for 9 years.
Yeah.
One of the questions I had is, do you think now was that a good thing? Because from my point of view, it was a good thing because it allowed me to go all the way through high school, to kind of get that core friendship that I would have never had if we would have moved to Italy. I mean, but I could be speaking fluent Italian.
Well, that's one of the reasons why I wanted to stay there, so you could finish high school. But I lost my train of thought.
So you think it was a good thing or bad thing? That was a question.
Yeah, it was. I forgot what I was going to say now.
So if you wouldn't have been injured, you would have had to move.
We'd have went to Italy and God knows how many other places.
God damn! But if you just let the fucking left fielder get that ball, it would have been, our whole life would have been different.
I didn't know he was there, but it wasn't. Well, what happened when those 2.5 years in a sergeant major? They tried everything, and then they were going to send me to Germany, which I went to Millpole, and my neighbor, who was applying to be a warrant officer, he came to me. He says, the sergeant major is he's over trying to fight. He came to me and wanted to know if there's anything we could do to get you kicked out of the Army. And I says, well, yeah. And he says, well, you can sign a declination of service because you're 2 weeks short of an all others tour. You don't have enough time. That means you have to get out at 20 years, which isn't really what I wanted to do. So I says, well, let's sign it. And then that was pure hell after that. And plus he worked on the E6. He locked his heels and said, you ever do that? He says, hey, my job is to tell the soldiers what they can do and what's available for them. So I signed this declination of service, and that's where I got out at 20 years.
So it was 1991.
Mm-hmm.
And then you started another career not too long after that, 92 to 2012.
Well, I started working for Letterly Labs in New City, New York as security. It was a drug. They did a lot of vitamins, but they were also studying for cancer and all that stuff for the animals and stuff. So I worked there as a supervisor for the night shift, and the driving was like 55 miles one way, and then in the wintertime, the icy roads and all that stuff. So I applied for a job at the fitness center there in Stewart. And I got that job. And plus then for 2 more years, I would work like the weekends. So I was working 7 days a week. I'd work for Letterly Labs. And then after 2 years, I quit there and then was full-time at the gymnasium there until 99 when the security supervisor job at West Point at the Arvin Gym,
the cadet gym,
DP, cadet gym came available, and I applied for that and got that. And then I worked there from 99 to 2012.
So almost another 20 years
Mm-hmm.
of federal service. So total of 40, not bad.
43.
Not too bad.
Yeah.
Not too shabby. Not 50, but it's close.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm kidding. But he was the head of security at the cadet gym, which is a cool job. What was great about that at the time for our family is all the lost and found stuff that cadets didn't return. He's not wearing it now, but for the longest time we'd have like West Point soccer, West Point wrestling, or the cadets wouldn't pick up their stuff. So that's what you get as a Christmas gift. You're like, oh, I got this West Point wrestling hat. No, I'm kidding. They're never gifts, but did that for long. You did that for quite a time. So now we're talking about the gym, working at the gym. So here comes a question, one of the grandson questions. Okay. All right. This is not my question. One of your grandsons. You have to guess who it is, and then you have to answer the question. Okay. And I'll tell you after whether you got it right.
Okay.
So the question is, what was your scariest ghost encounter at the West Point gym? Who's your guess of whose question it is?
I would probably say Nate.
Okay.
And the scariest one is we had a.
So real quick before you get into the scare, so to give a background, is my dad is 100% convinced that the gym is haunted, right?
Yes.
You see him; he's getting serious over there. He might start crying think about this. So he's told many stories about his experience. So what is he's convinced. So he's had many encounters with the ghost, right?
And we've been interviewed, myself and Jimmy and Tim, two of the guys that work for me, numerous times for cadets doing papers and other people. So we had a basement, and our floor where the desk was up on the next floor. We had 6 floors. So in the basement was, when I first started working there was like 3,500 lockers. And what they were used for, the plebes, the first year, they would all get a locker for the first year. Then they had the soccer team in there. They had the football team in there. So they all had lockers. Then after a few years after I was there, then the cadet, the football team, they built their own little workout place, and the soccer team moved out. So we just had the plebes, and then they started letting the doctors, the professors, and civilians on post have the privilege that I felt that none of them should have, because
get back to the ghost story.
So anyway,
they gave him lockers
every year.
My dad's like a privilege. No, you're a colonel, professor, and you're coming to the gym. You don't get a goddamn locker. But back to the lockers.
At the end of the year in May, after the plebes moved on to the second year, each one of those lockers had 5 combinations to them. So we had to rotate to the next combination for all those lockers. So to do that, it was usually late at night when everybody else was upstairs, and it was shut off because at 6 o'clock at night, those doors were all locked where nobody else could get in. So you'd be in there changing these lockers, and you would hear clanging on the other side, because you had a bunch of lockers on one side, then you had sinks and stuff in the middle, and then you went into the next one, and then so forth. So you knew you were the only one down there. So you start sweating a little bit. So then you'd kind of look up and you'd see like a silhouette go across the opening on the other side.
Were you drinking it all during?
Got to hurry up and get done with what I'm doing, because you only was able to do so many. You couldn't do them all in one night. So then the noise got louder. So, and usually at that point, I would say, to hell with this, I'm done for the night, and I would leave. Well, the one where the soccer team was, I opened that up one night to do theirs, and I seen the silhouette of this probably Civil War soldier standing there, and closed that door real quick and left there. And also in that same area, you could tell when they're near you, because there's a breeze on your neck and your hair starts standing up. So as you're
I love
walking
it.
down this hallway, you're saying, "Hey, please don't hurt me. I just want to do my job and get out of here."
I just
And
want to
then
make sure all these damn professors don't get
that
lockers.
that was probably my scariest. But we had other ones that it's just as bad because we would sit there and there was a
That
gymnasium.
doesn't seem that scary. So you start rattling in lockers until Civil War.
Well, it was scary because, like you say, your hair's standing up, you're sweating, and you know nobody else is down there but you. There's nobody else got in there. You know where the other two
It wasn't
got.
like a random cadet playing a trick
No,
on you.
they couldn't get in. And when you went in there, you checked it to make sure nobody was in there to start with. So, and all the doors were locked. And then we had this basketball court. It was called the North Gym right above us because we had like 7 gymnasiums in the thing. You would be sitting there and that would be all locked up. It was just right up the stairs behind you and you'd hear basketballs bouncing. You go up there and open the door and quit. Go back downstairs. They start bouncing again. So
Cadets.
we learned to ignore that. And the same way with the Hayes gym, the people that before I started working there, they used to hear basketballs bouncing in there. They would go right up to the court where it's bouncing and there's nobody there.
I love when you tell these ghost stories. It's scary when you.
Well, the worst one though was when Jimmy. I mean, when they did the renovation on it, they tore down except for the original building when it was back in the 1800s, early 1800s, which was that North Gym up there. So what they did for the gymnastics, they took half of that gym and they put a door right separating it, and then a small door to go in where the gymnastics section was. Well, to turn all those lights off in that gymnasium at night, you had to go up the stairs, go through that gymnasium, through that door, out back, go up some stairs because that's where the stages and stacks where they used to, for the theaters and stuff where they changed clothes then, and go all the way to the back of the gym, turn the lights off, and then you had to come back in the dark. In the morning, you had to go through there in the dark, and then you got to come back to the lights. Well, Jimmy went there one day. He went through, turned the light off, and come back. And all of those, everything in the in that gymnastics area was setting. And this is in a 2-minute period. All that stuff had been moved, was sitting in the door where he could get back. And couldn't get back to this side of the gym. So luckily there was another door you could go outside and go way around the gym from the outside. But in 2 minutes, I mean, there was nobody else up there. A bunch of people couldn't have moved that stuff in 2 minutes. So, I mean, I believe in ghosts. So.
I'm only giving hard though because we all know we talked about. I worked in the library at Norwich, and I believe in ghosts as well too. Because I saw some shit there it involved lights and some weird stuff like book stacking. So I just like hearing you the story and getting all. He talks about the hair going up on the back of the neck. I love it. So you chose incorrectly on who the grandson that gave that question. It was Gabe. Okay. Right? I mean, I thought that was easy.
But there's one thing we didn't do. We didn't play any pranks on each other because
why not?
The ghost didn't hurt us. And we discussed like if we start playing pranks on each other, this might piss these ghosts off, and now they're going to mess with us. So we never did any pranks. There was one other thing that really scared me really bad too. When you came in the morning at 3:00, the day shift guy, you had to go through this totally black gym, turning on all the lights. Well, you come in the front door and then you go down to the next section and you reach out to start to turn a light on and the lights come on and you haven't even touched it. Like, whoa, I don't need your help. I can turn the lights on by myself. Which is weird. But
so any other ghost encounters outside of the West Point gym?
No, I've never had any other anyplace else. So, but they had those over in the general's quarters too. And then there was this one barracks where they had 2 rooms that were never used because the cadets were always waking up in the morning feeling like they had 200 pounds on their chest. They couldn't breathe. And so
I feel like that's a story at every military school because we had a room that the same thing that they say, I don't disagree that you saw things. I had some similar stuff with lights in the library, turn off lights, and then there's no one in there. You turn them off, and they were back on. I just was like, hey, fuck it, I'm not going back in there and turn them back off. See ya. And I gotta get off the night shift at the library. So I think we're at 120. So I think we got to get a real man's drink now, right? We're gonna go to our second favorite featured beverage, we called it today, because you threw it off with the beer. It's our first beer, just kidding around. But we're having it today. We're gonna have a different Jim Beam product that we haven't had before tonight. Today's second featured whiskey is actually a barrel pick from the Bluegrass Hospitality Group, BHG, from down in the Lexington area. It's a Jim Beam single barrel Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey, which you don't see a lot of them, but we've talked about Jim Beam in the past. Jim Beam is located in Claremont, Kentucky. Jim Beam produces some of the most well-known brands in the world since 1795. They've had 7 generations of master distillers there. The brand became Jim Beam in around 1943 in honor of James B. Beam, who rebuilt the business after Prohibition. Fred No, the current master distiller, took over in 2017 and became the 7th generation Beam family distiller. His son now is the 8th. Freddie, so the 8th generation now. And then what we've had some of the other stuff in the past. You see here a Knob Creek pick, but the Jim Beam single barrel Jim Beam product is a very expansive brand. It ranges in different proofs, ages, whiskey types, and also is released in actually flavored whiskeys. So it's not a bourbon anymore. Jim Beam is definitely the flagship brand for Jim Beam, and it shares a mash bill with some of the other more well-known. I mean, I don't know well-known, but other for whiskey connoisseurs, your Knob Creek, Bakers, Bookers. The difference between these is the Bakers, Bookers, and all those generally come from the center of the rick houses, whereas the Jim Beam usually comes from the outer part and upper and lower parts of the rick houses. But very good product. It's rumored to say that these single barrels were going to end up being in the small batch Jim Beam white and black labels that you see. But these, if you ever see them, you don't see them very often. Hint, hint, Nick, we'd like to get one of these. But very good, very low proof. This is 94 proof. Like I said before, it's not age stated. And it shares the same mash bill with many of the other Knob Creek products, which is 77% corn, 13% rye, and 10% malted barley. So we're going to drink some real stuff now, Dad, instead of that Shiner. There's some of that left if you want it. You can pass that to those guys.
What?
You try it?
No.
You got to at least smell it. You don't always smell it. Here, you got to take a sip of it here. You take a sip of that one. You can pass that on to the guys. Take a sip. Come on. You can do it.
Oh, my God.
It's delicious. You don't like it? Come on.
No, I can't say I do.
So you retired 2012.
Yep.
Have moved to a couple different places. You went to Virginia for a little bit.
I moved there for 3 years, from 13 to 16.
And then moved here.
June 16, moved here, and I've been here since.
We've been reunited, and you still share the love of Ohio State football with me.
Yes.
Actually, you do now, because my dad's recently remarried. He used to hate Ohio State. Now he's an Ohio State fan. So, I guess, when in Rome, but
Go Karen.
Yeah. Yeah. My new stepmom, Karen, but yeah, he used to not be an Ohio State fan until he got married. He sold out. It's okay. It's all right. But yeah, this is 2016 moved here. This is the first time we've lived within probably, I can't even think, what would be the closest I lived to at the point? A long way.
New York to
Texas, yeah.
Well, no,
Texas?
Kentucky.
No,
Kentucky.
North Carolina.
North
Kentucky,
Carolina.
North Carolina. Yeah. So my dad just lives down the road. Doing that. So what are you doing in your retired life now? What's your
Traveling.
I mean, you're not going to your grandson's baseball games. He told me to tell you that to give you shit, Gabe.
I was there yesterday.
Okay. He said he didn't see you, but
He didn't see me.
yeah, I'm making that up. I'm trying to get in trouble, but
I will go to more of them.
okay. All right. He can hear you. He can watch
I
us.
went to Nate's football games. I
I know.
went to Ben's games.
So what do you do? So what do you do in your retirement? What's retirement like now?
We do traveling, play cards, visit friends, walk a lot. I do anyway.
So cards, big card.
Cards.
Yeah.
We play on Tuesdays, Mahjong on Thursdays, then we play euchre on Fridays, and then we play hand and foot.
And one of the things, another thing about the Miller family is we are not allowed to play cards. The Millers together. None of the Millers can play cards. And then if you throw in my wife back, and it's cards are not a good thing. My dad is uber competitive about anything you've ever done. Like we always laugh about why you can't hear Ben right now, my oldest son, but he's usually screaming his head off playing video games, and all of us are very competitive about everything we do, like mowing the grass. I mean, whatever. And it comes from my dad. It hasn't stopped. Like card games are. You're probably one of the most competitive people I ever have encountered.
Never won at anything very often, so try to play to win.
Is this like woe is me now? Like if it was like if we do mulch in our family, right? My dad always comes on mulch. Someone's bragging about how many bags of mulch they carried. Like someone's gonna be like, I did 30, you did 24. Like it's a competitive thing. It's always been like it was always you had to do whatever you're doing is to win, right?
Yep.
Which isn't the best all the time, right?
No, but used to be if you didn't win, then you won the game. You'd try to win the fight, but I give up on the fight anymore. So.
Yeah, you're a little too old for that.
And I'm trying to learn to not be as competitive.
Just like
it's hard to do after 74 years, but I'm working on it. So
he's. I mean, is that medication you're taking? How are you working on that? I mean, what's that?
No, it's
self-medication. Are you going to counseling for that? How to be less competitive? I mean,
no, just trying to be a better person.
Wow, we might have to have a card game where just have fun, right? That's the whole.
Yes, have fun.
That's never. Come on, Dad. We've never done anything where we just have fun. Like we can't even go shoot hoops right now and have fun. Like it's about.
I can't shoot hoops anymore, so.
But I still know I can take all my kids, so I know like I'm.
When we used to kick their butts all the time, we can't do that anymore.
Yeah, but I'm still the alpha male in the family. Like I can still dunk on Ben. If we lower the, we lower that. We can't even lower it anymore, Ben, because we have to lube it up. It won't lower down anymore. But I know how you feel. I mean, you used to be the dominant guy. I used to be the dominant guy. Now I can barely like move my arm. I can't shoot. I can't play basketball anymore.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. But so, a couple other questions. Now I got to kind of guess. We're back into the family questions. We're back into them again. So you're 0 for 1, right?
Okay. So
the next question is your best or favorite part of working at West Point. You were there for what 29 years, almost 30 years. You got to guess who it is first.
Let me see, 23 years plus 9.
He's still trying to do the numbers.
Wow.
So, best or favorite part of working at West Point? Who asked that question? There's only 2 left. You got a 50-50 chance.
That would probably be Ben.
All right. So, what's the answer? I mean, are you more focused on who it was? I mean. Come on.
No,
you were there for 30 years. I'm trying
to think what was the best part. I mean,
was it parking cars at the A lot?
No.
My dad took all kinds of jobs like that.
Maybe it was getting all those cans to pay money, going into dumpsters. No, we won't mention that.
No, we won't. That's a good source. So I'm glad he brought that. So my dad was we were the hand. I don't know. I guess I joke around it, but it taught me work ethic. Like we made a joke about. I literally had a paper out when I was like 10 years old. I had it until I was 22 years old. When I was in college, I'd come back and do it, and then you kept that for like how many years after?
Well,
that?
Your sister took over for.
Well, I mean, you kept it. She wasn't.
But I kept it for a long time, yes, until I got tired of it because I finally realized what you were always talking about. Why you didn't want to go out collecting the money. You would deliver every day, but you didn't want to go get the money from the people. And I finally realized that got old because all my breaks from working, I had to spend out trying to get money, and people would hide from you. I mean, it's just like, so I said, the hell with this.
Yeah, so the old school before, if you ever had a paper route, right? It was, I mean, you helped me a lot with it doing this school you did in the summer kind of left me hanging a little bit, but which is fine. But collecting, nobody ever helped me collect. My parents didn't, and they always be like, you got to go get the money and all that kind of stuff. And so this isn't the days of Venmo and, on bill paying. You had to walk up and it was like $270 a week or like $170 a week or something. And you'd be like, hey, I'm here to collect $1.70. And you would have people say, like some guy would stand there and go like, oh my gosh, I would pay you, but my wife has a checkbook. And you'd see the wife like walk right behind them. And you're like, and this wasn't like, you're like, what? And then I just saw you want to be like, you saw your wife. So like when you're younger, you're just like, I remember like you're 10, you're just like, it's fine. Right. And then when you did get paid, you got mad tips because you were younger, right? Yeah. You're like 10, 11. You're getting all kind of, oh, look at that cute 10-year-old kid, 11-year-old kid. His parents making him child labor out there. You know what I mean? But collecting was the worst. Like, it was the most awful experience. I guess it got me into like accounts receivables. Like when people owe you money, you got to go get it. That's why every time I owe Nathan Levy, who's out in the audience, money, I always hold out because I feel like I go back to the days of when people didn't want to pay me. But I'm glad to hear that you ran the struggle. You'd be like, just go out there, get the money. It's not that hard to do. People were ducking you over like $760 for a month. I think it was like $760 a month for the paper at the time. And people didn't want to pay it.
I think when I quit, everybody owed like 3 months and I just quit. I just didn't want to go get it. The one lady, because I'd have an hour break at the gym. So I would drive over and collect during that hour break. This one lady, I hated going there because she'd come on and sit down and she would talk the whole hour and you still wouldn't get the money. And then you'd have to come back to work.
But I'm just glad to hear that. I don't think I've ever heard that you had that much.
I hated going collecting too.
But you would send me out in like the rain, the snow, like go get the money. But it was a good job. I made.
Next, you're going to say I beat you to go out and do it.
No, I mean it was bad. I mean, it initially wasn't bad, but it was really like shaking people down for money, and it was. And then the thing, and then you'd stop, give them the paper, and they'd be bitching at you in the morning. You're like, yeah, but you owe me $14, and at the time it doesn't. I mean, it's crazy to think about, but that was a lot of money to people back then, do they have paper routes anymore? I wonder.
I don't know whether they do or not.
I mean, someone's got to be delivering papers. I still love the paper, though. Remember, I used to hate it because it was like every morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, or earlier they'd go deliver before school. Then on top of my child labor chores that I had in the house, then on top of collecting, I just felt like I was working. I could have probably been an astronaut or a lot smarter if I wasn't doing child labor and collecting for 10 hours a day. I could have been studying, but do you remember the paper out when I went to school to Norwich? I remember I wrote a letter back about how I couldn't wait I missed being on the paper out in the morning, the fresh air and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, man, military school will make you say anything because like the minute you got back, like, I hate this job. I mean, because I literally had it till I was like 21. So you go from like 10, I was on that paper for like 11 years.
Yeah.
And then when you're a 21-year-old paper boy, people are like, fuck you, man. Like, you're not getting a tip. Here's my 760. Leave me alone. You know what I mean? And that stupid little punch thing, that was awful. And Natasha did not do the paper out. Let's be real.
Well, I helped her. She was little. She couldn't carry the dang bag. No, she delivered two. She would do one side, I'd do the other.
She was little. She still is little. But you always pampered her. You always pampered her. Like this is the truth. Like, oh, she was too little.
Well, how many paper girls do you see on his paper boys?
But Dad, she didn't even help ever. Like we would be
She
out.
did.
She did.
When you were gone, she helped. She did.
Dad, when we were growing up, we would be in the car. Mom would be driving that AMC Spirit with all the Sunday papers. Natasha would just be in there. Even if she's in the car, I'd be at the house. She never did anything. The princess, which is fine. But I always loved giving her a hard time. It was a kinder, gentler second child.
If you're listening, Natasha, you know this is not true what he's saying.
It's the truth. It's the truth. But so what was you said that we were making a joke, but what is your favorite? We've stalled it long enough. Best part or favorite thing about working West Point all those years?
I guess all the people that I met that came in there, that good people. I mean, I didn't really care for people in charge, but I met a lot of good military people and civilians there, and two of the guys that worked with me that I still keep in contact with. So
I felt like you had a good time interacting with the cadets, though, for your 20
yeah,
some years,
a
though.
lot of them. There was a lot of bad ones, though. It's not what they say it is. But
What
as
do you
Jimmy
mean
would
by that?
always say when they say, "God, it must be great working at West Point," and he would say, "It's beautiful in the fall."
It is a beautiful place. In the winter, it's miserable, but it is a beautiful. But you got to interact with a ton of like, the cadets. I feel
Yeah.
like you were always happy about most of your. I mean, I feel like you enjoyed like hardcore.
I
As a
enjoyed-
retired NCO, you'd like give them a little bit of that like
Yeah.
retired NCO loving of these like cadets. I feel like you were hazing cadets probably for a few years.
I
about
never hazed anybody. I just
Didn't you tell a general that he couldn't come to
I
the
told 3 generals they couldn't come in.
into the gym? Why was that again?
Well, they were coming in. They were breaking the rules when they were coming in. What was the SOP said.
So
And when they hired me, my philosophy is you're either consistently bad or you're consistently good. Don't flip flop. It's one or the other. So I mean, I was firm, and when I wasn't there and people would come in and they would question the rules, Jimmy or them, and well, we want to speak to your supervisor. And they would say,
They're like, "No,
is
you
that the guy with the scar?" Yeah, no, that's never mind. You're good. I'm satisfied, and they would leave.
But so the cadet gym that people don't know, it's a cadet gym. So
Yes.
it was a gym that is dedicated to the cadets. So there's a bunch of it's been remodeled, but it's a bunch of that's where all the cadets do their physical training.
Yes.
So they it used to be the team. Some teams are still there, but they branched out. But it's a cadet gym. So if you were stationed at West Point as a professor, there was times that you were not allowed to go into the gym.
Yes.
Because it was cadet
from 3 to 6
cadet time.
From 3 to 6
Right.
and Monday through Friday.
And the gym is one of
cadets only.
And the gym is one of the most like my dad's not joking around. There's like 17 gyms. I mean, it's probably the most crazy,
it's
ridiculous gym. Like even but but at the time when they do that, they're all in there at a certain time, so it does get pretty busy. So when my dad is saying when he's told a general who's stationed there and probably in charge of the cadets that he couldn't come there, they couldn't come into the cadet gym. That was. I'm sure they took that very well.
Well, they did, and then of course they would. I know the master of the sword. I said, well, I know him too. Do you want me to dial a number? But I never got in trouble for any of them because they would call and the master of sword would give me a call and he said, well, Roger, blah, 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 blah. Is that what the regulation says? I says, that's what the SOP says, sir. He says, okay, no problem. He's not coming in.
Yeah, but you just told the superintendent he couldn't come to the gym. I thought you were going to get in trouble for. You said your favorite thing was all the free athletic gear that you got.
No,
I mean that's just vintage now. Like I feel like you wore that like soccer.
It's just that there was so much of the stuff they just would leave it. Every night we would take bags of it over to the cadet guard room and drop it down. Because they would not come back and get it.
I feel like I gotta find a picture because there was a soccer jacket that you
I
wore,
still have it.
that you wore
that
you wore for years, and
Everybody's,
everybody like,
soccer?
did you play soccer at West Point? No. Oh, did you have a kid that did? No, I used to work the security and I got these for free. This is the third jacket. There was 7 extra large ones that I kept over the years, but but they're typical college kids. They leave the stuff there,
it wasn't only them, the civilians and everybody else. They were in the dead of wintertime. People would come in here with the kids and they would leave when it was snowing and 10 degrees out and leave their jackets and their tennis shoes there. Who the hell goes outside and does that? I mean, and then you have to log all this stuff in. You have to keep it in certain bins because it belongs to civilians, this belongs to cadets. I mean, it's just the lost and found.
You could have been retiring really well if you'd have not eBay back then.
Yeah.
Being able to put all that stuff on eBay, like
the watches were. Oh my
God! I do remember. I do remember visiting. You'd see that, and it was just crazy. But so your favorite thing is the people. That's your favorite part working at West Point. It's the people.
I mean, I liked the job, but meeting all the different people. There was a lot of full-bird colonels that I knew. I had a lot of power because I knew those guys, and they knew what I was. So
I thought you were gonna, but back to what he was talking about too is the infamous 2 years that I dumpster dive to go to Disney World. You're welcome, Natasha. Like, so my dad used to work the A lot at West Point, which is, if you've ever been to Mikey Stadium, it's the prime lot to be there for tailgating so my dad parked there. But then after each game, I worked as a ticket taker. Remember that? And then my dad was parking cars. I feel like I was always, what jobs didn't I have? Like, holy cow, Dad. I mean, paper route. But but then my dad, back then New York, they still do. They had the 5 cent
yeah,
deposit.
this was during when they first started doing that, and nobody was really keeping them. They were just throwing them away. And once the game was over with, you had like 15 lots that they park cars in, and you go to these dumpsters within an hour or an hour and a half, you could have a whole pickup full, which is like $300-400, which is like clear off.
I love how he's talking like he was he had the master plan, which was So when the 5 cent deposit started, you had the master plan, but everything else was me getting into.
Dad, we shared.
Shit, Dad, I can't tell you how many dumpsters in my, like, we would go to line and be like, get in there, and like, I mean, and then the crazy thing was just me get the cans, like, and he'd be mad if somebody had taken like the label and ripped it off. He'd be like, that bottle's not worth it. It doesn't have the the barcode on it, because again, what he's not telling you is we would fill up a pickup truck full of cans, right? We didn't even have a pickup, so I don't even know who you got.
I borrowed from a neighbor.
Right, then we would take them and put them into our backyard
and hose them
tiny
down.
little fence. We'd have to hose and clean them out. So you got a picture too back then, people dipping in there, or like just the most awful stuff, and you're in there like cleaning it out. I mean, I'm in there doing that. He's just like, get that can out, knock it off. You act like you never had dip spit on you before. So again, we're not buying a car with this. We're going to Disney World. Like, I was a junior and senior in high school at the time. I'm like, I could give two fucks about going to Disney World. Again, I don't remember my sister being anywhere near this. She was little. She could have got into some nooks and crannies.
She did it after you left.
Oh,
we
come
both
on.
did. Yes.
Come on. Bullshit. So, and then the other part about this is the can thing was different back then. This is where we're telling stories. You didn't take it to like a place where you just had bags of cans. Like, you didn't just take like, and they weigh it. You had to take it to, what was that? It was like Kroger. What was the name of that place? It wasn't Kroger.
Just different grocery stores.
Yeah, there was a machine that you would have to get there, and you'd have to put them in one can at a time. It would read the barcode and be like, and then it would like crush it and take it and give you like 5 cents credit. But then there was two machines the place we used to go. So you'd have these. Here we are dragging bags in there too. Like, no normal human beings are coming in with, maybe a shopping bag of them. We're bringing in jumbo size, so like Santa Claus bags. Of course, people want to get normal people are getting their 60 cents back. We're tying up the machines for 2 hours. Like, you put them in there, they wouldn't read the code. My dad would be like, wipe it off. Like, get that, like, clean the code. And then like, we'd have a bag that was the bad code. It was the most god awful experience. But
then you had to take them inside, and they had to do those personally. but what it was, they didn't do maintenance on the machines. So when they did that, and the dirtier they got, then they wouldn't pick anything up. So
it was.
And then when we first started doing it, not very many people were collecting the cans. It was just something new.
And their kids.
We had the run of the whole place, so we could fill our pickup quick, and we're done. And you get 7 home games, you get 200. That's not bad for a few hours work. So, but then other people just started realizing, hey, we're making money, but then you had to fight for the.
How are you turning this into a positive experience? There was nothing positive about it. There was. I love how you're like, oh, we were.
I keep thinking on doing it.
We were entrepreneurs, is what we were. My dad's like, we were entrepreneurs. I had my. You never went in a goddamn dumpster. I'm telling you that right now. You never went in the dumpster. A trash can you would dig through, but dumpster, like, get in there, and then like you'd be in there, and like, I think I remember one time. You remember when I grabbed it? It was like somebody had roasted the pig head, or like the pig head. Then I was like popped up with that. He's like, stop fucking around. Get the cans. There's a can over there. There's a can there. It was the most. I mean, ripping back. It was the worst. And Natasha never did that, but evidently we paid for a trip to Disney World out of it. So, that was. I mean, I can't believe you. So you're turning this into we're entrepreneurs back then is what it was?
I think it would be one now too. You're in
No,
Ohio.
there's not.
Fill up a big old U-Haul full and take it up to Michigan. It's the closest place.
Don't tell Levy that. This is an idea that Levy's always looking for ways to make money.
But them cans are everywhere. There's money laying everywhere.
Don't, whoever he's talking to about this, do not fall for it because you're going to be doing all the goddamn work. He's just going to be like,
You won't have to worry about Che. He won't help you do it. So.
I am not getting another catch. I mean, that was, I'm telling you, this is like, and it was the time of the life too with shitty flashlight too, because you'd have that shitty flashlight you can't really see. It's not like now where you can see where you're jumping in. It was just, and you make it sound like we're there for 50 minutes. We were there like for a long ass time. It was like 5-6 hours of this.
No, we weren't.
From the time that we started digging through shit,
That would have been midnight or 1 o'clock.
Who did you get the truck from? Because I should have known that. It's the person not to loan the truck.
I forget who it was. It was a neighbor.
Oh my god! And then our backyard would have like 1,000 cans. It was awful. It was awful.
Then we learned that was spending too much time rinsing them off, so we just throw them in the bag and take them. If they wouldn't go, we'd wipe it off.
So that question you had correct was Ben.
Okay.
That was a Ben question. So we have one more question.
Well, I can guess who that is.
That's from Nathaniel.
Okay.
So his was, what is your favorite memory from all of your years in the military? And don't say people. You keep going back to people. Then, like, your favorite memory, military memory. Was it flying in a Huey? Was it?
Probably flying in the Huey.
You can't take me. You can't. Come on.
That's a good one.
That's got to be a lie because you said you would never go back. I thought you'd be like was beating some poor guy soldier at Oktoberfest. You have to have a better story. Like, I mean, come on, you say you won't ever go back in a helicopter. How could that be your favorite thing that you said you never?
I would go back again if I had a chance.
Well, you had a chance, except for Jason isn't flying anymore, so he's gonna have to try to still sneak you and.
Karen wants to fly too.
You can't. It's just you. It has to be retirees.
Oh, come on.
Talk to Jason. I mean, he's the first sergeant now. Maybe you guys can do some kind of underhanded NCO shake, but evidently something happened years ago with Jason's not here. He would set it right, but a bunch of family members in there and had some mechanical issues, and they were like, bad press if the whole family goes down in a fun flight in a Huey. I mean, a Blackhawk. So, do you want to go in the Blackhawk again? You want to fly in the Blackhawk?
Yeah.
You never flew in a Blackhawk, did you?
No, they didn't have such thing when I was there.
Jason, we got to make this work. I mean, we would talk to him, but he bailed on us for dinner tonight cooking. He's not even here. So I think he was retired. We could work that out.
Karen too?
Dad, I just told you it's for retirees. You can't only retirees.
Jason, you need to work on it.
Oh, my God. I love how he doesn't want to take me. I'm starting to get like a little upset here. So he knows why. So my dad actually, his next big military move. So what's your real answer before you go to that? Because you can't say other than the Huey because I gave you the answer. What's your other most favorite memory being in the military? I mean, was it, smoking hash in Vietnam? I mean, like drinking. I mean, like beating people at Oktoberfest. I mean, pulling over, a colonel. You got to have like a favorite military story. I mean, I would hope you'd say being airborne, but you were too scared to do that. So you didn't. What's your favorite military story? Come on.
I don't really have one that stands out, son.
Wow, Nate with the stumper question, huh?
Well, you told me I can't use the one that I'm thinking.
Well, if that's your one, explain it. If that's your answer, why was that your favorite? What was fun about that?
No, I'm not going to use that one.
I'll let you think about that.
Okay.
I can't believe Nate stumped you on that question. I thought that'd be an easy one. So one of the things my dad, the promise to get my dad on here, I made a joke earlier, is I have to go to the VA now. I have to
Yes.
go back and at least get hearing aids, right? The minimal. Everybody is like, yeah, the hearing aids are.
We need to go farther than that.
But we'll work it. So I made a pact. I'll do that. So I'll keep to that promise. But my dad has been. My dad is a diehard. We talked about the VA before. Huge support of the VA, right? They've taken care of you
to a certain point. Yes, I am.
Yeah, they've taken care of him pretty well. He won't. He still thinks the VA is the bomb. But the Columbus, in all respect, though, the Columbus VA, and also I think in Richmond was another really good VA hospital.
Yes.
So you've had a couple of really good experiences. So I'll give you that. But now one of your newest things is in a couple months, you're going on a trip.
Yes.
You want to tell the audience about that? What's
the honor flight on
okay.
the 15th of June out of Columbus to see the wall and Korea and go see Arlington Cemetery.
So we've had Daniel Bachman, who's a doctor, who goes on that. But my dad totally does that without telling me. So again, he's talking about taking somebody else on a helicopter flight. Didn't tell me so I could work my magic to get on the honor flight. So Daniel, keep working. I need to get on the honor flight just to harass my father. That's all I want to go. Pair me up with another veteran, but I just want to be there to harass my dad.
Maybe you can still get in to do that.
It's
for
booked.
Another veteran.
It's booked. It's booked.
You said he had polls.
You're not supposed to say that on camera, though. I mean, come on. Now you just lost. Oh my God, you can't tell 7-year-old people anything. They're like, come on, forget about that. We have no poll. I mean, just now I'm never getting on the flight.
Well, I told him that your real name is not Miller already.
So. Yeah, it's Peters now. I didn't know that. That's crazy. I never knew that. How did I not know that?
And we could have never told you that.
And we could have went to Italy, Dad. I mean,
well,
Vicenza, Italy is like a sweet place to be stationed.
I'd have been limping to get there or in a wheelchair or something, but couldn't have done any duty.
So we'd have been in Italy. I mean, Italiano. Ciao bella. Oh my God, the things you find out. So back to that question now. We're getting close to being in the time that we're going to end it on that question. That's your last question.
Oh wow!
I mean, if it was shooting M60s into the rice paddies of Vietnam, if that's your answer, stick with it. I don't know. I mean,
well, I guess the favorite part when I was in Vietnam, I had an M60 that I would have loved to ship back to the States, but by then they'd already realized people were doing it because it was off the books. And whenever the main compound got mortared and we had to go on alert, that was the weapon that I always took with me out in the perimeter, which is an M60 machine gun.
Did you have a name for it? I mean, it sounds like you guys are pretty intimate.
I didn't give it a name, but
what happened? Didn't have the last name Peters or Miller? I mean, something like that. I mean,
probably Kitty because it purred like a kitten. I'm telling you.
M60 is a great machine gun.
But when I left, we had to cut it all up with a torch. So was, like I say, it wasn't on the record books anymore because when it came in to get repaired, the headspace was way off. But we was able to repair it good enough, and by then they'd already DX'd it. So
why didn't you just take it apart and like ship it?
You couldn't ship back then because that was after the time that people were doing it and getting away with it.
I mean, you're small with your parent. Take it apart one piece at a time, Johnny Cash.
It wasn't going to work, and I didn't want to go to jail for it. So
that 17 days was rough. You didn't want to repeat it. So. I mean,
I don't think it would have been like that though.
Oh, that's crazy. You should have sent back that old granddad. I tell you, my God. All right, so we're approaching 2 hours. I want to thank you, Dad, for coming on. Didn't think I was going to learn anything that I didn't already know, but it's always good. I have to go check my birth certificate, see if I can get that changed or whatever. But thanks for coming on. I know it took a little bit it's not your forte. I know you're a social person, but not to get on here and talk, it's a little hard, but I appreciate you coming in. I will keep up to my part of the bargain. You didn't give me a time frame, so.
I already made the appointment for next week.
Yeah, right. But I will hold it to my end of it. But thank you for coming on. Thank you for being the first Vietnam veteran. And on behalf of a lot of other veterans, I know it's one of the things we didn't talk about, but If you want to talk about it, we can, but we don't have to. But it's a different time frame when you came back, and how you were treated as a service member, and then also a service member that served an award. So the times have changed. So I've told you this before. I'll tell you this again. Thank you for your service. Thank you for what you did. Thank you for showing me the way. I appreciate it. All the hard work, hard labor, but also the thing in the military. I think we talked about. I knew at a pretty young age from knowing what you did in your life and your career, and that I wanted to come out to try to repeat that. Of course, I bettered it being an officer, so I always have that going through. But thanks for your service, and all the other Vietnam veterans that are listening. Thank you for the service. It isn't always said. It is said a lot more, but it should have been said for many years. And again, thank you for being the first Vietnam veteran. I didn't want it to be Mike. My father-in-law. I mean, he would have never, let you live it down. But
now you can let him come on.
Now we can let him come on. We can have some Vietnam. But all seriousness, we need we need to get more Vietnam veterans on here to tell their story. It was a definitely different time. So thanks for coming on. So tonight we're going to get to the part where I tried to change it up a little bit. We're going to honor a Patriot who took his life. It was very hard. I tried to think last night to try to instead of trying to find someone that is current. The epidemic that we're fighting has been going on for a long time. It's a lot more. It's talked about a lot more now, and that's with podcasts like mine and other organizations that are out there. But the epidemic of veterans killing themselves goes back many years. So I spent some time last night trying to find a Vietnam veteran who committed suicide. Very hard to find the information to get it. So this is a little bit different than some of the veterans that we've honored before. This one is a little bit different in the type of information we're going to provide, because the information just isn't out there about them. But so tonight we're going to honor a Vietnam veteran who took his life, U.S. Army Sergeant Jeffrey Davis, 36 years old. Jeffrey took his life on September 15th, 1984 in Washington, D.C. At the time of his death, Jeffrey was a Washington, D.C. plainclothes police officer. One night after visiting the Vietnam Memorial Wall, he walked away into the night and shot himself with a service revolver. Jeffrey won the Bronze Star for his heroism in a battle in the A Shau Valley, in which most of the platoon of the 101st Airborne Division were killed or wounded. When he met his wife, Alice, after the Vietnam War, like many other veterans, he rarely talked about it, although she later learned that battle and the belief that he accidentally killed a child were the two memories that Jeffrey could never shake. According to his wife, Alice, Jeffrey's thoughts were pretty buried, and he only talked about it with his friends. Jeffrey had several police friends at the time that were also Vietnam veterans, and they consoled and comforted one another. Just before his death, Jeffrey took up skydiving, which in 1984 probably wasn't super popular or that easy to do. But his wife really believes that he did that to try to find the thrills that he once got in the military. But reading back there, she said that nothing would ever replace Vietnam and what he was searching for. Jeffrey is survived by his wife, Alice Davis, his daughter, Kelly, his son, Scott, and at the time of his death, his mother, Betty Davis. So, like I said, the suicide epidemic is reached a peak for all veterans. So if you or any other veteran or just anybody needs help, you definitely need to contact the Veterans Crisis Hotline. You can dial 988, or you can dial 1-800-273-8255 and press 1, or you can text 838-255. So couldn't believe how hard it is back then to find out, but it's been going on for a long time, and we need to do the best we can to stop that. So that's the dark part. We're gonna end it on some admin notes. What's going on? We have a couple more days left on a really important fundraiser. You've seen some posts from me that the fundraiser is going on until Sunday. We're going to auction off a really amazing Willet, two amazing 10-year-old Willets that just themselves are pretty amazing. The case is great. The glasses, great cause from a support of the group, and also three. The second prize is going to be 3 barrel picks from Oprah Grill and Tavern in Central Ohio Bourbon. And we've got a few more days, and we haven't been talking about what it is. And the podcast took off pretty quick. us getting our 501c3 happened even quicker as we talk about it. But I did post, I think yesterday, that all the funds that we're going right now will go towards a scholarship that we'll be awarding for the start of the fall 2023 school year for children of veterans who committed suicide. So it's a worthy cause. We're trying to do the best we can to make sure those funds are going directly to that. So it's a really good cause, really great opportunity. Again, we talked about it, $25 slot. If you buy 4, get 5 slots. We're going to close it up at about 11:30 on Sunday, and then we're going to pick 2 lucky winners. Again, some pretty good bourbon. On that, when we're talking about bourbon, we've got some couple barrel picks that are outstanding. I just got some news the past couple of days. One of them is inbound. We'll be putting that for sale here shortly. And then finally, we've been waiting on a little bit of merch. We got a good deal on some merch. Mr. Bulk Levy, he likes bulk. We found a good bulk deal. I won't tell you what he said about bulk deals, but we have some rock glasses that are going to be coming up for sale in the next couple of days. You want to check them out, we'll send some pictures. But again, everyone that's been supporting all the fundraisers, there'll be some more details that are coming out about what we're going to do with it. But rest assured, the money's going to go to a good cause. Providing scholarships for kids that parents have committed suicide, and my personal belief that education, and it isn't just for college, it could be a trade school or things like that. So I just want to thank everybody that have donated. Again, I'll end it by thanking you, Dad, for coming on. I'll thank you for your service. Thank you for showing me the way, and we will see everyone next week. We're going to go back-to-back weeks. So we'll see you here in 7 short days with episode 31. So everyone have a great night, and I hope the paint dried, Jason.